The Perimeter with Adam Morrison is proudly presented by Owens Farms Piedmontese.
Let me share a local Spokane secret that everyone needs to know about. Owens Farms Piedmontese beef. Trust me when I say this. You cannot beat this meat. It's tender. It's flavorful. It's some of the best beef you'll ever put into your mouth, period. And to top it off, when you eat it, you can say goodbye to the meat hangovers. That's because Piedmontese beef is lean and has much less cholesterol than your typical supermarket beef. It's a new year. It's time to start living your life with no regrets. Go to ofp.farm to reserve your half or whole order of premium Piedmontese beef today. There's only a limited amount of Owens Farms Piedmontese beef available, so make sure you don't miss out. Go to ofp.farm today. The Perimeter with Adam Morrison is produced independently and locally in Spokane, Washington by Spokast Studios. Our city, our stories. Visit www.spokast.com to learn more about how you can start your very own podcast today. Thank you to Jinx Universe and Position Music for letting the Perimeter use the song Let's Do It Again from Jinx's album, Make It Look Good.
The Perimeter with Adam Morrison is brought to you in sponsorship with Delicious Hamburgers. Did you know Delicious Hamburgers and Fries are the freshest in Spokane? Their hamburgers are never frozen, and that's because it tastes better. There's not even a freezer in the restaurant. Their fries are always made to order and never sit under a heat lamp. Its differences like this you can truly taste. Next time you're craving the freshest hamburgers and fries, head to the corner of Augusta and Division and ask for the Perimeter Combo. A triple delicious hamburger with grilled onions, pickles, and special sauce. It also comes with fries and your choice of a milkshake. Delicious. Taste the difference.
Let me introduce you to the Spokane Workers Co-op, a locally based worker-owned holding company whose mission it is to increase access to living wages, workplace democracy, and autonomy, and to create the sort of lifelong career trajectories that are increasingly uncommon for the majority of people in America. The worker owners of SWC, regardless of which business they work, are equal co-owners of the entire holding company, providing them not just direct ownership of the fruits of their own labor, but ownership in a diversified and resilient portfolio of businesses dedicated to serving Spokane and the Inland Northwest. SWC also buys traditional businesses. SWC buys traditional businesses like LLCs, partnerships, and sole proprietorships, for example, from owners who are ready to retire and who want to make sure the employees who help them build their business are taken care of after the owner leaves. Learn more at www.spokane.coop. And if you're an owner interested in talking about selling, email SWC at team@spokane.coop. That is team@spokane.coop.
Let's do it again. Let's do it again. Turn up the 10. Let's do it again. Let's do it again.
Welcome to episode 16, season 2 of The Perimeter, sponsored by Owens Farms Piedmontese. I'm your host, Adam Morrison, with Brennan, the producer. Another great week of Gonzaga basketball, ending the West Coast Conference season, heading into the postseason play. Kind of an interesting game against San Diego on Thursday. Obviously, you know, a team that hasn't been playing very great this year and has had a lot of injuries. Steve Lavin, former UCLA coach and St. John's coach, and then he's been on TV for about almost 20 years off and on, you know, when he's taking college jobs. Bitten by the injury bug. I mean, I got to give him some credit. They've had, I think it was 25 different starting lineups or something like that.
Holy cow.
Something crazy. Yeah.
That's crazy considering Gonzaga has had one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, it gives you a little context to how bad it's been for them as far as trying to get guys healthy and continuity and all those things. And that's a real thing in college basketball, especially at the lower programs where the talent level isn't as good to keep you afloat. And so if you can develop continuity and routine and stuff like that, you can start winning games based off team play, So going into that game, we knew they were going to play fast, but it was one of those games like hopefully we don't look ahead and we can kind of get this thing over with early. And I always hesitate to say that, but that's the kind of the main thought. And we did exactly that, just that, especially in the first half, up 17. Came out really aggressive. They scored the first 6 points, was 6-0 at the start, but there was no panic obviously from our crew. And Drew had a great game, 9 of 14, 22 points, 13 rebounds. Anton played good, 8 points on 4-6, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, no turnovers. Nolan had a good game with 10 points, 3 of 7. Julian Strother, 17 of 6 of 10. It was nice to see him keep the scoring level that he's had in the last month and a half up. Rashir didn't play great, shooting wise, 7 points. Ben Gregg was the spark off the bench, 18 points, 7 of 9. 18 points in 18 minutes. That's what I was trying to think. And 7 rebounds, but he really came in against that zone. And actually, I got to give Steve Lavin credit. A lot of teams don't try zones, and I think it always baffles my mind, especially some of these teams that are not as talented as ours. Why don't you try different things and see what happens? We shot 7 of 26 from downtown. So, like, if I'm, severely outmatched talent-wise, you got to try to plug up some holes on the defensive end. And that's what he tried to do. And it got us stagnant for a while. Then how I'm bringing Ben into this, he came in and, got a lot of catches at the high post. Phil Jackson used to always say it, and it wasn't necessarily against the zone, but it made sense in the zone. He goes, you can also get penetration with the pass instead of the dribble. Everybody always thinks against zones, it needs to be swing. And yes, you need to dribble to collapse a defense, but if you can hit guys short corner, high post, defense still collapse. And that's what Ben was getting, that high post touch. And then obviously when he steps out, they have to honor it.
Yeah.
So we were getting penetration with the pass. And I think he really sparked us to go on a big run there in that first half. But beautiful game for him off the bench. You need guys like that to have those type of games, because we're going to play, obviously it's tournament time. So anything can happen. You need guys to have, a worldly game. I don't know how to describe it, but you know what I'm saying? Like, you need to have guys that play out of their averages, especially when you get in the tournament. You know what I mean? Since sometimes it's things don't work your way and you just got to go hoop. So it was a good game. I mean, we ended up winning by 25. I think it's about all we needed to cover for that game.
Totally.
But it was just nice to see the focus was there. We wanted to get that one out of the way. Because college game day was coming into town, and everybody was obviously excited, and we'll get into that in a second. But the idea of trap game is a real thing, and especially with a team like San Diego that literally had nothing to lose.
Yeah.
So, and they shoot a ton of threes, and they play like kind of wild, just because Steve Lavin's just like, well, fuck it, it's my first year. We're shitty.
Yeah.
We're gonna try whatever we want. So it was interesting.
And they took St. Mary's to the wire the week before.
Good point. It was 59-56, and they had a chance to tie it and going into overtime or whatever at end of regulation. So,
yeah,
very dangerous team to play.
Very, yeah. I mean, and they showed it, like how many, because they just took a ton of threes, or they didn't take. I guess they didn't take a ton of. No, they did take a ton of threes against us. But yeah, it was a weird vibe there, just in the kennel, just because you could tell like everyone was just ready for the St. Mary's game.
Yeah.
Like the student section left early, everyone left early. Like it was just like as soon as that we got that lead and didn't let it up, like it just kind of like everyone started looking towards St. Mary's. I feel like,
yeah. I mean, especially in the first half, up 17.
Yeah.
I mean, Huddy and I were doing our, getting out of the break and going to the second half. We're basically talking about the St. Mary's game. You know what I mean? Like just kind of previewing that, and especially, in the kind of the dead times of the games, we were talking about game day and stuff like that, even during the live action, because that's what everybody wanted, but you can't say it out loud. I'm a big believer, don't put it out in the universe type of deal. So you just go, yeah, it's gonna be a tough one tonight, and Coach Few's always done a great job of that, especially the staff, as well as getting the guys focused on what the task at hand is in front of them first, instead of looking ahead, which is a hard thing to do, and people don't realize, like, to win as many league titles that we've had, we've won most of the games that you're supposed to, and Huddy always talks about it on broadcast, and it's such a great point, is all these schools that start making momentum, that want to turn the corner for their program, and be like a San Francisco last year, where they're a third team to get in, and then obviously like a St. Mary's, who's a perennial postseason team and an NCAA tournament team now. You have to win the fucking games that you're supposed to, and a lot of teams don't do that.
Right.
And they, let's just look at, great examples like BYU every year. They'd lose to Pepperdine every fucking year, and you're like, how, why? You know what I mean? But that's why you don't win league titles.
Yeah.
And so, Coach Few and the staff always does a good job of making sure the guys are in the right frame of mind, and then understanding what's in front of them. And even like, let's say there's a conference game. Let's say there's a tournament game coming up. They'll even do like, all right, we're playing this team, but we'll start in practice running some of the stuff for the scout for the next team without saying it.
Gotcha.
And you kind of figure it out later. You're like, oh yeah, that's what we're. But like, they do a good job of preparing for multiple teams, and so then it's not one big deal on your plate as a player. You know what I'm saying? But like in the NCAA tournament with a higher seed, if you're a 1, 2, or even a 3, you should win that first round game. Doesn't mean you're overlooking them, but you're like,
right,
this is who we think we're going to play, so we need to add.
Yeah,
right? You get what I'm
practice
saying?
yes, to face that team.
But you're not saying
But
it
you're
out
not
loud.
saying- yeah.
You know what I mean? So
For sure.
for the most part. But
Like I'm sure, like practice for this next week, they're looking towards who they're going to play, like in the WCC, but they're also thinking about possibly playing St. Mary's again.
yeah, oh, no,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
So I mean, the San Diego game ended up working out perfectly, especially minute wise. When we got Drew on the floor for only 23. Julian gets 31, you know what I mean? But like everybody played like a small number of minutes, which I think was just perfect because you wanted the guys to be fresh. It was 2 days before one of their big games, or the biggest game of the year. So I was really impressed, happy, obviously, because everybody wanted what we got for Saturday. So going into a game like that, we did game day. First time I ever came here was 06, I think my last year.
Yeah.
We played Stanford, and it was weird because it was during conference season time, but that's when we used to play like the weird, I used to call it unbalanced schedule or whatever. So then they gave you two opportunities, 2 weekends to play somebody else.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was because at that time, our RPI used to just tank when they went into the league. So then Fewy started bitching about it, like around the Dan Dickow years. Like, hey, you got to give us a chance to get another high quality game, because if we're going to be like a auto bid team, even though we believe we can win the tournament, but you know what I'm saying, setting ourselves up for automatic bid or a at large bid, excuse me. You got to give us a chance to get our RPI back.
Yeah.
So that year we played Memphis, ended up losing, but it was a classic game, and then we played Stanford at home. And before the season, they were supposed to be better. They weren't great.
Yeah.
But point is, like, you're going through conference season, and all of a sudden it's like game day. And it was just fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Like, it's nonstop, media stuff. It's really cool, but it's like, it's a lot of pressure on just a regular game. So coming into this one, I was a little bit concerned of, well, how much media is Drew going to do? And Julian and stuff like that. Cause it's a real thing. I mean, they start that show at like 6 in the morning.
6 o'clock. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, you're not showing up then, but you're doing all of the 30-minute piece or whatever, just whatever it is. You're doing it after practice the night before or whatever. Like, so it's a commitment, and you can't really say no because it benefits you and your program and you as an individual, but sometimes it's just like a little bit much. So I was concerned about that just in the back of my mind. But obviously our guys looked good. Heading into it, the biggest key I thought to the game was how we going to guard Mahaney on ball screens, because down there we were good for like 30 minutes of it, and then the tail end of the second half, we just lost our stride a little bit defensively, and some of them were great individual plays. So sometimes you always got to sit there, especially somebody like myself that calls the games and does the analyst parts. I can't always just be like, oh, he did this wrong. It's like sometimes you're there, you're in a spot, or it's not 100% perfect, but nobody is, but you got 95% on the test, and the other kid got a 98 and he gets the scholarship. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
for
like
sure.
sometimes it's like you still made the right play and it just didn't work out for you. But there was probably like 6 possessions late in that first game where Drew was late on his tags, or not on his tags, excuse me, on his high shows. And we were high showing and then getting back with somebody in the low hole supposed to have a tag. And then we doubled a couple times and we gave up a wide open 3 to Dukas. He missed them, best 3-point shooter, but I think it made the staff nervous, because usually at home they make those. So my point is, late in the game down there, they recognized it, and every time, even if we pre-switched, they would get Drew in a high ball screen situation.
Yeah.
And so it was one of those deals where like, all right, something's got to change. Drew's a better defender than this, even though he's slow-footed, considering with our 5 guys on the floor, he's the slowest. It's not a knock. He'd probably say the same thing. But you are quicker than you showed last game. I guarantee that was the message. And he probably looked at himself after he watched tape like, yeah, I could have done better.
Right.
And so I think what the plan was, and it worked out perfectly, was against LMU at their place, we went to an immediate trap every single time with Drew, because they tried to do the same fucking thing with Cam Shelton.
Yep.
And they killed us the first time, but it was similar. High ball screen, false action to try to get Drew to help, and then he has to sprint up, but Drew did an excellent job of corralling Cam Shelton. And I think they put that in not only to win the LMU game, but to prove to themselves and trust it as a staff. It's like, okay, we can do this, where we double and we shrink the floor. You might give up certain things, but you got to shrink the floor, and we're getting out of the all-league guards' fucking hands, and we're making somebody else averages 5 beat us tonight. And so once they showed that against LMU, I was like, oh, okay, this is what we're going to do against St. Mary's. I'm almost 95% positive. And it's exactly what they did. I thought early in the game, our shows and our recoveries on him were fantastic. Drew was moving his feet. They even tried to do, which is smart, this is what the NBA thing, where you run an action to get a switch, and then you have that guy, whoever the person you wanted guarding the screen on the switch, run up and set up. So like Dukas would go run a false action with Saxons, and Drew would switch, and then Dukas would go up and set a high ball screen. He would just never set a high ball screen. He's always the space guy.
Yeah.
But they were trying to get Drew because they knew that blah, blah, blah. So the little things like that are fun to watch. But like I said, Drew just got down in a stance and moved his feet, and we corralled. And then I thought it was smart on a lot of the early action stuff. We had Julian on him up top. Size length is always bothers smaller players, in my opinions. It was always, for me personally as a player, whenever there was taller, longer guys, it was way worse than a shorter, quicker guy.
Yeah.
It's always harder. And you know what I mean? It's just an awkward feeling when a guy's over top of you, and his hands are out and all those things. You know what I'm saying? So putting Julian on him early, and then there were certain actions where they would get into a switch with Rasheer or Nolan, but then it was like, all right, we're still fine. You know what I'm saying? Like, because the first game, I think we kind of left Nolan on an island where Nolan had to get through every fucking top ball screen, and that's hard after a while because you can't go under on him. You have to go over the top and then trap. You cannot go under, and after a while, I mean, it's hard, and you get clipped, and so like switching guys, it's better. So I thought the plan early on was fantastic. I mean, our defensive effort was great. Obviously, fueled by the crowd. That's the loudest it's been in there, and it's probably been 2 or 3 years. I mean, as far as energy wise, student section was completely full. They were into it. Obviously the other people and the normal people are just non-students, I guess. were completely into it as well. So they were, it was just a great atmosphere to start, and we came out like gangbusters, man. We were flying around on the glass. I was really proud of how Nolan Hickman bounced back in this game. I mean, he ended up having 9 points. Let's see how many rebounds, 4 rebounds. But he started the game with like a brutal air ball that was like like a really bad one. And it was really great leadership as Rasheer Bolton came over to him and, kind of gave him a little, hey, let's go. You know what I mean? Like it was really good leadership because that's just not a way you want to start the game. But the reason why I say that is because like he could have easily went to a shell and been shitty, and he wasn't shitty at all the rest of the game. Defensively, he was great. He was getting to the paint. He started making his floaters. But another strategic adjustment that we did that I think was completely necessary, and I'm pretty sure we're going to do it from here on out, I don't know why we wouldn't, is we went to our 30 press or 1-2-2 at the very start. Usually Fewy likes to put it in, after a free throw make or something like that. And it's something you kind of, in the college game, not so much like the high school game, but you kind of use it a little bit less sparingly because players are better, they're taller, stronger, they should be able to beat a press.
Yeah.
But we went to it right away, and it wasn't just to create turnovers because we did create a few, but you just got to speed this team up because they come down, they hold it, and it's what they do. I mean, they're good at it. They're the 5th slowest team in the country. I mean, this is what they do.
Yeah, when it was happening in real time, I was just like, oh, they're not gonna have as much time to shoot the ball now, and like it made as a regular fan, I was like, it made so much sense, especially after talking to you so much about it. And I was just like, and it was so disruptive.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Our guys did an excellent job. We had Julian at the top of it, and you usually have long length, and then our 2 quick guards on the wings, and then our back line's not terrible as far as moving around, especially with Anton and like I said, he's slower, but he's not like terrible. You know what I'm saying? So like, and he can move his feet and game time. You know what I mean? Like he's one of those guys. Like, hey, get your ass going. He will. So I just thought our plan was so much more succinct, and we looked so much more comfortable. But it's also, we remember like that game down in Moraga, we led for 33 minutes. So like, if you really look back at that game, there was like 4 plays where we didn't do the simple things defensively. So like we should have won that game as well. I'm just being completely honest. Like hats off to St. Mary's, and they did exactly what I just talked about in the previous segment. They went out and won all the other fucking games they're supposed to win, except LMU. But But they went out and beat the teams that they were supposed to beat, and so you always have to tip your cap to them because again, people think it's so easy, but it's like, okay, go play Pepperdine with 2 legitimate NBA pro prospects and then a really good scoring point guard. Go play them up in Malibu when your kids are kind of fucking around. You know what I mean? Then all of a sudden they get hot. You look up and you're down 15, like, and then you start shitting your pants, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's a real thing. But I thought in the first half we were fantastic. We ended up leading by 13. So we felt obviously pretty comfortable, but it was our defense. I mean, we scored 39 points. The pace was so much better than it was down there, but they only had 26. So our guys were fantastic. I think the job we did on Mahaney was great. I think he was 0 for in the first half.
Yeah, he had 0 points. I kept on looking at that stat, and he had no points in the first half.
Yeah. So 0 for, and then I don't think he even got very many field goal attempts up. I think it was like 3 or 4. So, overall the energy I think was great. Obviously feeding from the crowd, but we were just flying around, and it was one of those games where you could tell guys were not that we're this way, but it's a little bit different when the energy's not there or the will to win or whatever. I don't know how to describe it, but like guys were just making any type of play they can to help win. You know what I'm saying? Like swing, you know what I mean? Tip outs, like just doing whatever. Like I don't give a shit about points tonight. I don't care about all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? They were just making plays to win. So yeah, that first half was beautiful. And then, St. Mary's came out in that second half and made a nice little run. And you always kind of know that they're never going to beat themselves completely. But also, if you have that type of lead, you have to try to extend it because they can't. There's a certain threshold that it's hard for them to come back. But Mahaney went on a nice little run. He scored 8 points, I think, almost in a row. Made 2 threes and then a layup. But that was all he had the whole night. What was his line? Yeah, 3 of 10 for 9. So we did an excellent job that whole time on him. What's the kid's name? Johnson. What's his first name? Landon Johnson?
I think, Landon Johnson.
Landon Johnson had a fantastic game, 7 of 12, 11 of 15 from the free throw line, 2 of 2 from downtown, had 27 points his last game. He's from Spokane, oddly enough, which is kind of cool.
I did not know that.
You didn't know that? Yeah, he's from his, they moved here.
Wow.
There was an article in the Spokesman. They moved here like, he's from Spokane, kind of.
Okay.
It's one of those situations where he lived here for like 4 years, and then I think he left during high school.
Yeah.
And played, and his brother plays in the NBA, or did. Okay. I don't know if he's still in, but played for the Heat, had a nice run with the Heat. But he's a very good player. But it's kind of funny. Like, there was a great article, I read it, Spokesman, and they lived here first. So he's like, yeah, my favorite Gonzaga player growing up was Jeremy Pargo. Like, that was, so that's the era. He's like,
that makes sense.
He's like, yeah, I'm a Gonzaga fan.
Yeah.
Technically, you know, obviously not anymore. But
yeah,
they lived here till I think he was like an 8th grader or something. Anyway,
yeah.
But so good, cool for him to have a nice game. But that second half, they made a nice little run early, and it got nervous where everybody was kind of like, oh, here we go again, because we controlled the game down there.
Yeah.
But I thought our guys did enough to make the right type of plays. Anton Watson was player of the game, in my opinion. 7-11, 17 points.
Absolutely.
8 rebounds, 3 assists, 4 steals, 0 turnovers, 1 block. Did everything, was flying around, had some sequences where he was getting tip-ins, and then the next play down, you know, a tip ball and diving on the floor, and was just, you know, electric with his energy. Drew Timme with a great game, 19 points, 7-11, 5 of 5 from the free throw line. Hey, we got to start tipping our cap to him. He's starting to make free throws now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
hopefully
to go 5 for 5, and like I think the game before that he had he only missed one.
Yeah, he was like 7 or 8 or something like that.
Yeah, so it's really cool to because especially at the beginning of the season and even in the WCC play, like he was struggling from the free throw line.
They looked they looked bad. I mean, he would tell you that too. That where he looked completely uncomfortable, and that's when it's scary. It's when a guy looks just uncomfortable. You know what I mean?
And back to Mahaney, he made those. I think he made 2 3-pointers pretty close back to back, and it was like you were. I was kind of getting those vibes of like the first game. Like, are they going to let him just come back out here and just keep on scoring? And then they kind of shut him down, which it was really nice to see.
Well, it was. There was one where I think it was Nolan went underneath the screen, and Coach Few lost his mind, but he was right. I could see him. You got to go over, and that was the game plan. So like you kind of have to commit to it. Like I got to climb up into his hip, knowing that there's going to be a hard show in a shrink or a double team in a shrink, but I cannot fucking, because they're smart as they roll into you as well. So then you're completely fucked.
Yeah.
And what he does a good job of is he comes off a screen, and then if they twist it and go back, he gains a lot of space. Like he roll dribbles over, and then so it stretches your big ball screen coverage out. So like if you go under, you're running into your own fucking guy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And he's really good at it, and then he has a seam or he has a shot. So like we did it. You have to be completely extremely disciplined on, I have to go over. I'm going to have bruised legs. It's going to hurt. I might pick up a foul where I chug them and I just get over. If they're big, sticks their knee out, I'm putting an elbow into his groin area. Like that's how the mentality has to be,
right?
Or he's going to kill you.
Yeah.
And our guys did an excellent job of that. So I was just thoroughly impressed with one, our pace was way better up here than it was down there. We shoot 54%. This is a team that holds teams at like 43. You know what I'm saying? So we shoot at our pace. 4-14 from downtown wasn't great, but it didn't kill us. We only took shots within ourselves from 3, and then 17-20 from the free throw line is fantastic. And then +4 on the glass. They killed us down there on the glass. I think they were +7, I think was the number. Pretty sure +7 down there. So we got the pace back to where we wanted to. We did the job on Mahaney. We didn't let him go, and then we won the glass.
Yeah.
And then, obviously we didn't turn the ball over. We had 13. We had 11 down there, which isn't an astronomical number, but against a team that has lower possessions, it analytically maps out to it.
Right.
But we only had 7, so we had 13 assists, only 7 turnovers. They had 11 turnovers and 11 assists, so we kind of flipped it on them. But it was a fantastic game. I mean, it was clean both ways. I thought Malachi was fantastic off the bench as well. 5 of 6, 13 points, exact same numbers he had down there. 5 of 6 for 13. Same impact too, where he kind of, had some possessions where, he comes off those mid curls and stuff and hits tough floaters that are just kind of a bitch to guard, and they're kind of frustrating because you stay in front or you stay on his side, and you know what I'm saying? You just make those 12 footers, and those are just analytically, technically bad shots. But when guys can make them and you trust them, it's hard to stop. So yeah, I thought it was a really great game. Both clubs, we did a better job on Saxon up there. He only played 17 minutes. I was kind of confused. The big kid down there, he was 5 for 5 for like 15. He made the game winning or the game tying layup.
Yeah.
But they took him out after his third. I don't know if they pissed him off or something, and he never came back in early in that second half. And I thought down there on Drew, I think the first game Drew had like 19, but it didn't feel great. You know what I mean? It wasn't like super efficient. And he played him straight up. So like I was really curious to see why he didn't play more in that second half. They went to the Jefferson kid who had 9 points, but I think maybe they just wanted to go smaller and try to match our speed with Anton and Drew. But it was just weird because then they played that big kid, that Wessels kid from Perth or whatever, that one of the fucking, they're always from Australia. All of them are. And it was just odd. So, but
that is odd because I'm looking at the last game stats. Saxon had 15 points, played 38 minutes.
Yep. They don't play bench guys either.
Had 11 rebounds.
All their starters average 32 minutes or more. It's crazy. So like if you're in the top 7, that's all Randy's going to play, and it's the Marcelonis kid. He's the only one that averages double figure minutes out of the 2 other guys that play.
Yeah.
So like basically they play 6 guys, 6.5 guys, really. And the Marcelonis kid, I thought it was going to be obviously they probably didn't plan on Mahaney or whatever, but he was supposed to be the guy after whoever was there. Who was the kid that Jordan Ford, really good scorer, good player. Marcelonis was supposed to be the guy, but Mahaney's kind of take his spot. So I'd be curious to see what happens next year if Marcelonis stays or if he transfers.
Yeah.
But Logan Johnson, that's his name, not Landon. Fuck.
Logan Johnson.
Yeah,
I was gonna correct you, but then we went away from it. But.
So it'll be interesting if Marcelonis plays alongside Mahaney next season. But yeah, I thought for the most part, I mean, Logan Johnson only got a good game, and then Dukas had 10, but he was 4-6, wasn't really a factor. Had 7 rebounds, but he played all 40 minutes. So it's like, I mean, that's not great numbers for 40 minutes of play.
Not at all, no.
But it's going to be a dogfight. I mean, the next time we play him, we ended up winning by 9, 77-68. But interesting stat. It was kind of a crazy stat if you really think about it, especially in the state of how college basketball or basketball's played in general. We're the second team all year to score 70 on them.
Oh, wow.
And LMU is the other one. And they both won.
Yeah.
But like 70 is the number. It's not even 80. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So they're really good defensively, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
and that has to do with their pace, too. Obviously, they shrink the game up and they slow it down. But, I was really impressed with our guys. We end up sharing the West Coast Conference title. That's 11 years straight with either winning it or sharing it, which is an amazing feat. I don't give a shit what anybody says about the West Coast Conference. I don't want to hear it. Like I said, winning games and the teams you're supposed to is harder than you think. And what was the number? 16 years, 25 wins, 16 straight year.
Yeah.
It's fucking insane.
That's insane.
So again, anybody listening to this, and I've said this on the last season, when you asked me at the start of the fucking year how good Gonzaga is going to be, they're probably going to win 25 fucking games. So just don't ask me because I don't know.
They're going to win 25 games.
They're going to win 25 games. I don't know about any of the recruits. I really don't. The only guy I ever watched was Chet, and it was kind of shoved in your face because it was on your feeds, like Ball is Life and in overtime. And they'd show it. Other than that, I do not watch any any of the recruits because
Yeah.
they're all going to be good. They're all going to look great in their high school uniforms and their AUs. All of them.
All of them, yeah.
All of them. So I will let you know when I go down to practice in the fall and I watch Craziness and Kennel, then I'll give you my opinion.
Yeah.
But don't ask me in the summer. I have no fucking idea, nor do I care. And yes, we'll be good the next year because we'll probably win 25 fucking games, which is a crazy feat.
That is insane.
It's insane.
When it was like 23 of the last 25 years, we've also won the WCC, which is another.
Yeah.
That's another like it's just the success that Gonzaga's had over the last 25 years is this. It's
lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, it's very much so.
It is.
But it was cool to see that happen. See them win the WCC on the floor on Saturday. It was you're not going to get many chances. Like I imagine they've won the WCC title 2 weeks early before, and that
it doesn't feel that way.
Yeah.
We did it. I went undefeated twice, and I never had we never were like, yeah. I mean, we kind of were, but we already knew.
Yeah.
It's like sweet.
Yeah.
So like, that's a pretty cool moment for them, and like how great for the conference too to be like, all right, let's schedule these two teams at the last, and then they're praying to God that there's some juice on this game, and there was, and then obviously game day being there.
Yeah.
And then if you're like just a fan, whether you want Gonzaga to win or not, it was a good basketball game. It was clean, it was physical, but it wasn't. There wasn't bad stretches of poor offensive play. You know what I mean? It was like.
Yeah,
there was enough excitement. There was dunks. There was guys hitting threes, and
Anton, his energy was because he had like two just great
I don't know where it's
dunks.
come from too. Like he hasn't done that since his prep days, and that's not a knock on him, but there was times earlier in his career like he would go up and just lay those things up. Now he's like elevating and like putting it down. And getting fouled and finishing. So it's like, it looks like Anton against Meade High School. You know what I mean? Like,
Right. Yeah.
I remember seeing those. So kudos to him. He's had a fantastic senior year, for being completely honest. He's been one of the, not a surprise from an energy standpoint, but like he's mixing in the scoring. And I always said it's hard to say, but it's like, he wasn't really a scorer the last 2 years, right? So then it's not like he didn't have the ability, but I don't think he had the confidence within himself. So like him doing it now, you're like, oh yeah, it's great, but then you don't want to be like, he couldn't do that before. It's like, yeah, he did. He just didn't, I guess is the best way to describe it. So he's been fantastic. But so anyway, Gonzaga gets the second seed. They go off the net rankings. I think we were 10 and St. Mary's was 7 heading into that game. I think that's what it was last. So I wasn't surprised that we didn't surpass them. Something crazy would have to happen. What was cool was the league said, though, we'll take the net ranking after that game and not after Chicago State. Because they would have gone to shit anyway. Like,
right, for sure.
We wouldn't have got anything out of that. So thank God the league was like nice enough to at least give us that chance to get the number 1 seed.
For sure.
I've had people ask, and it's been a topic on air about why Chicago State. I'll give my opinion on it. I don't know exactly, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. Having a senior night on a game like that is hard because it adds so much more crap you got to deal with, and crap is not the right term. Extra stuff you have to do because it's just not the right term. I didn't mean it like that. Because I'm talking about you get families in there and all that stuff, and that's important, but it's just extra stuff. So it's not bullshit, but it's like it's extra stuff you got to do. And then in the years past, let's go down memory lane a little bit. We've had senior nights when we played BYU and we've lost.
Yep.
Okay, so that's in the back of Huey's mind. And then can you imagine if it was senior night, league championship, and then college game day and the one game?
Yeah, that would have been nuts.
It would have been nuts. It's almost, again, it goes to the how much are you willing to risk, I guess, quote unquote, because like we are playing for seeding, and obviously league titles are important, but we want to try to get a 3 seed and maybe sneak into a backdoor to a 2, but we want to get a 3 seed. It counts as quad 1. And then also, like, this may sound funny, but like against the Chicago State in years past. So how many seniors do we got? Just Drew.
I mean,
this year. Rasheer, Drew. So, okay, here's my example, though. Let's say one year we have 4 or 5, and 3 of them barely play.
Right.
But then you have to play St. Mary's. So are you going to be the dickhead that doesn't start senior on senior night?
That, yeah.
Right?
That's so true. Yeah.
That's a real thing. You know what I'm saying? So then if you play Chicago State, you can do that. You can start those kids for a minute and a half, hypothetically, and then you don't, and then you still win the basketball game by 30.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that is why we have Chicago State. There would be no other way to get a bigger time game. So when people are asking, like, this is way too late in the year, so he's doing this just for senior night. Okay, so I know it looks weird, but we had to do something, and this is the result. Yeah.
And we used to play in these type of games and like the week off that we had before the WCC.
Yeah, and that's another good point. I didn't bring that up.
Yeah.
Is the break.
Yeah.
There's so much time to the start, so like at least having a game, and people, well, you can scrimmage, like that's not the same.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right now, they will not play until Monday night.
Monday night.
So they're going to take they would if they weren't playing Chicago
9
State.
days off.
9
right?
days off, yeah.
So you're exactly right. That's a great point, is the break.
Mm-hmm.
So I know it looks weird and blah, 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 but those are the reasons why we play a Chicago State on the last game of the season, to have senior night.
Yep.
It's just what it is. So people can bitch about it or scratch their heads. Those are valid, legitimate, logical is the key word.
Yeah.
Logical reasons why we did it. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to the West Coast Conference tournament. We ended up getting the 2nd seed, which is totally, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean, but you and I talking off air, and it makes sense. We're looking at the bracket, and let's just be honest. There's probably 2 teams I wouldn't want to play until the championship game. But that not St. Mary's, right? Obviously.
Yeah.
LMU would be one of them, and BYU would definitely be another.
Yeah.
And they're on the other side of the bracket.
It worked out great.
It worked out perfectly. So
Yeah.
BYU hypothetically is going to beat Portland or San Diego, even though they always struggle against Portland. Okay. And then you're going to have BYU and LMU beat the living piss out of each other.
Yep.
Because they always do. And then they have to play, one of those teams has to play St. Mary's, and BYU should have beat St. Mary's. Mahaney hits a turnaround with a hand in his face over the Traore kid with like 2 seconds left at their place. Should have lost.
Yep.
Okay. And our matchup is either Pacific San Francisco. So I think San Francisco. So probably either Santa Clara or San Francisco. And I think we match up better with Santa Clara out of all of those teams. I think we're a hard matchup for them.
Yeah.
And so, like, it works out completely perfect. Even San Francisco, I know they almost beat us at home at their place, but I think we've, covered those holes up. And you know what I mean? Like, I don't think that'll happen again.
Yeah.
So, like, on our side, it's like, oh, we'll take the 2 seed. Go ahead. We'll bring our dark colored jerseys down. We don't mind. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it worked out perfectly. Yeah. I mean, what a great West Coast Conference season, honestly. It's going to be 2 bid league, obviously. 3 if somebody else surprises us, but I think it'll be St. Mary's, obviously, and Gonzaga in the championship, and then hopefully it is, because it's fun to play for all the marbles, and those games are fun to call.
Yeah.
And they've beaten us in those games before. I mean, that that one year that we had Snacks' crew, Snacks, and I think it was BC and Rui and all those guys. Remember, they got their ass kicked by that one game. They got fucking like blown up by like 15. It was so weird. We were good. I think that's the year we went to the Elite Eight and lost to Texas Tech.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, but we just got like waxed, and calling it on the radio was just weird, because we were like, oh, we're way better than these guys, but good job, because we just played so bad. But it was also nice to like get that game out of the way.
Totally.
Play like really shitty, and it's like, all right, we're not in the locker room crying right now because we played shitty. You know what I mean? Like, we got it out of the way. Let's now it's March. Who cares? We're going to be a 2 seed or whatever we ended up being that year, which was kind of knew where we were at anyway.
Yeah.
So it was like sweet, and it was cool for them to make it. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the West Coast Conference tournament. I think, like I said, Santa Clara, San Francisco is a better matchup for us in the long term. Obviously, we don't know completely the bracket, but it's going to be either Santa Clara and one of those other teams, and I think the other side is way more difficult.
Yeah.
I think BYU plays with too much pride to not play hard. Same with LMU, and those two teams playing each other, and then St. Mary. I mean, if you're BYU, like game of inches, right? There's always a football term. I mean, if you think they should have beat us twice,
They should have, yeah.
for real.
Yeah, for definitely.
And then you add the St. Mary's win. Okay, that's 3. There's 3 wins. So then what's their record? Do you have their record by chance?
Yeah, I can get it up real quick.
You know, like if you're them, that's 3 quad 1 wins for sure. And I think at one of the times we were probably ranked 6th in the country, so it just looks better. You know, the one at home. So what's their conference record?
Their conference record is 7-9.
So let's say they would be 10-7.
Yeah, 10-7.
10-7. Let's say that they win those games, they get a little bit more confident, they feel good about themselves.
Yeah.
They're 12-5. We're talking about a 3-bid league then.
Yes.
Like, and 2 of those were last second. I mean, 2 of them were like buzzer beaters essentially. I mean, Julian's wasn't, but it was right. We made 3 threes in under a minute to come back at him, and one of them was Hunter Silas. God bless the kid, but he's made 11 on the season. And he hits the biggest 3 of his college career in the corner, right in their face, whack. And then Julian comes down on a, like a workout shot. The guy's just standing there and just whack. And then Mahaney hits a fucking like ridiculous fadeaway. I don't know if you watched the game, but it was a straight turnaround with a guy played great defense, hand his face from like 16 feet, whack, game over, So you're sitting there like, this team. My point is, going into this conference tournament, they are going to be dangerous as hell.
Yeah.
And if I'm St. Mary's, I'd rather play LMU 100% than BYU. But LMU just beat St. Mary's, so maybe the opposite's true. So.
I think it's just one of those situations where I'm happy we don't have to face them until the championship if necessary. But looking at BYU's schedule over in the WCC, like all the games that they lost, most of them were single digit losses.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
It's just like, it's so close.
So close.
And yeah, they're gonna go into these games because they do have a lot of pride and they're gonna want to try to win this to make it to the tournament in their last year in the WCC.
Yep. They've never won a West Coast Conference title.
No.
Which is insane. So like this is their last chance to do it. And if you're Mark Pope, you're sitting there, obviously they're gonna move to the Big 12 next year, but you're sitting there like, hey man, we're like so close. I know that doesn't horseshoes and hand grenades, all it counts, but like it really does. It's like if you're sitting there like, man, this year could be so much different for our kids and my program and all that stuff if we just sneak out some of these wins. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this conference tournament. It's gonna be great. We'll have a recap of that when it finishes. It'll be later. It'll be a different time in the week.
Yeah, I'll probably come out
Thursday or something like that.
Thursday next week. Yeah.
Thursday next week. So stay tuned to that. The games are Monday, Wednesday. We're assuming we play in the championship game, but you never know. But if that's the case, we'll come back and put the episode out on Thursday and give our recap, and then we'll talk about what we think is going to happen seating wise, potentials. Then I'll talk about. I'll go over like not player grades, but like who I think should be all league and all that stuff. And I'll always exclude, like I'll talk about Gonzaga players, but I'll talk about the rest of the league too if people are interested. You know what I'm saying? Because I've seen the whole league, and obviously Drew's the best player in the fucking league, and he should be MVP, and that's not a knock. But it's like, let's talk about some of the other guys, because he'll win MVP, and he absolutely should. He's averaging 22, and he's about to be the all-time leading scorer. But I think people want more in depth on who else is good.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? And that's just my gut feeling on it. And again, it's nothing against Drew, or it's not like I don't like watching him, but I think, he is what he is. He's one of the best players of all time at Gonzaga, and we've talked about him till we're blue in the face this year. Let's talk about Cam Shelton. Let's talk about the Pozetsky kid at Santa Clara. Let's talk about Mahaney. You know what I mean? Like, these guys are going to be here after Drew, blah, blah, blah. So I'll go over some of that, and then we'll talk about potentials for the NCAA tournament and what we think, because Lenardi's usually pretty right on track, which is, pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Obviously he has help, but like that guy is pretty dialed in. Like if he says you're in, most of the time you're in. He's hardly ever wrong. And then he usually gets the seed line right. And a 3 seed in Orlando would be way better than a 4 seed in Albany, New York.
Yep. When we were talking about that last week, basically we moved up to a 3 seed in Orlando, and UConn moved up to a from a 5 seed in Albany to a 4 seed, and so and now St. Mary's is in UConn's old spot, and so it's
in Albany.
In Albany, yeah,
Yeah, that'd suck for them.
yeah, that would, yeah.
Then they probably wouldn't get any fan base. They had a good fan base last year, wherever the hell we were. Their first round game, we were in the same pod.
Yeah.
Where did we play last year? I didn't see. This is how bad it's been. Portland. I think it was Portland.
I think it was, yeah.
But we were in the same pod, and they played right after us, and we beat Memphis we beat Memphis. So everybody's like deep XL, like, oh, thank God. So that was a horseshit matchup for us. Like, oh my God, please, Boise State, please win this game.
Yeah.
And Memphis won. Obviously, it's like, fuck, this is a bad matchup. But they were right after us, and I remember we were up in we probably get a suite or something. They get a suite, our executives or AD and whatever.
Yeah.
And so I go up there, have a few beers, and it's the first time I've seen a lot of Zag people cheering for St. Mary. We legitimately were, and they had a good following. It was kind of cool because who'd they beat? They beat somebody that was a bigger name, and you could see, it was Indiana, I think. Yes, it was Indiana's, and they were just like, who the fuck are these? You could just tell like the Indiana, it's like St. Mary's, what the fuck, and you're like, West Coast Conference, yeah, But anyway, we'll go over all that stuff. And, again, we appreciate everybody listening. It's winding down, but it's the fun part of the year when it's tournament time. A lot of good things happen, and anything can happen. And I think this club is peaking at the right time. I wouldn't say that otherwise, me. And I think it's like, oh, we got guys rolling in the right direction, and we're flying around, and we're healthy. Right, there's a lot of good things going good for us.
Yeah,
and it's like also too, we could fly under the radar a little bit, and it hasn't been like that in about 5 years. It'd be kind of nice to do.
It would be, yeah,
right. Just to kind of go in and just fly under the radar with no expectations, and try to make it to through that first weekend, and then it's a fucking coin flip. After that, but get through that first weekend and get ripping and roaring. But I like where this team is at. Much improvement from the start of the year. Obviously, but still a long way to go. So
absolutely.
Thank you for everybody listening. Thank you to their sponsors, and we'll see you next week.
Let's do it.